All right, hi guys. So this is going to be our second video of nomenclature for ionic bonding. Okay. Last class we turned the chemical formula, so something like NaCl, into the name sodium. Today we're going to be doing the reverse. We're going to be going from the name into the chemical formula. Okay, so this is the process that we will be taking today for ionic compounds. For naming, we're going to go from the name into the chemical formula. All right? Okay, let's get started. So the do now is just a review of last class. It wanted you to name this compound. And the first thing to determine is this metal, is this a transition metal or a group 1 and 2 metal? Calcium is in fact right here, so it's a group 1 and 2 metal. And then phosphorus, is it a polyatomic ion? So is it many nonmetals together, or is it just one? Well, phosphorus is just one. So we are just simply taking a group 1 and 2 metal bonded to a nonmetal. So the first step is to name the first element listed. So this Ca is calcium. And the second step is to name the nonmetal with the "ide" ending. So phosphate turns into phosphide. So this element, its proper name is calcium phosphide with that "ide" ending. Okay, nice. Let's move on. So our first step to do is to turn group 1 and 2 metals bonded to a nonmetal from the chemical formula, or from the name to the chemical formula. So we're going to take group 1 and 2 metals, again bonded with those nonmetals. And we're going to turn the name into the chemical formula. Okay? So let's see what that looks like for group 1 and 2 metals. So the first thing it asks is, what is the name, or what's the chemical formula? Sorry, what is the chemical formula for magnesium oxide? So the first step to follow, magnesium is that group 1 and 2 metal. Oxygen is the nonmetal. Okay. The first step says to write the chemical symbol for the first element listed. Well, magnesium is Mg. Okay. The second step says to determine the charge for the first listed, that should be a D, listed element. So Mg takes a +2 charge. You can find that on the periodic table. Okay. Next step, write the chemical symbol for the second listed element. So we're trying to write out the chemical formula for magnesium. And so far we have Mg +2. And then this step says write the symbol, the chemical symbol for the second listed element, which is for the oxygen. Oxide is oxygen, so we're going to write the O. Now it says determine the charge for the second listed element. So far we have Mg with that +2. And then we have oxygen, and oxygen takes a -2 charge. Okay. Now we're going to crisscross our charges. So we have Mg +2, O -2. We're going to crisscross our charges. So the -2 comes down to the bottom of the Mg. And the +2 comes down to the bottom of the oxygen. Okay, now step 6 says to erase the plus and minus signs. So we should have Mg2, O2. And then lastly, step 7 says to simplify the numbers to the lowest denominator. Well, 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So we can simply just write this symbol, this chemical formula, as MgO. That is our answer. So magnesium oxide simply is just MgO. All right. That's easy. Let's move on to something a little bit more difficult. Well, first, I'd like you to practice. So please do these 3 practice. I will do the first one for you. Sodium is the metal, and it's Na with a +1 charge. Chlorine is the nonmetal, so it's Cl with a -1 charge. We're going to crisscross those charges. So we should have Na -1, Cl +1, which we can just simply write, after simplifying, as NaCl. Okay, nice. Now I'd like you to go do steps 2 and 3, or practice problems 2 and 3, and before you move on, have me check the answers. Okay. Now we're going to move on to determining the compound from the name of a transition metal bonded to a nonmetal. So again, transition metals are the metals that fall in this highlighted red area, bonded to the nonmetals that fall in this highlighted green area. Okay? So our name, you're going to be taking a name of a transition metal bonded to a nonmetal. We're going to be turning that name into the chemical formula. Okay? All right. So it asks, what's the chemical formula or compound of iron 3 sulfide? So step 1 says to write the chemical symbol for the first listed element. Well, iron is our nonmetal. Iron's our metal, and it's our transition metal. It's our transition metal, and it has a symbol of Fe. The next step says to turn the Roman numeral into the charge for the first listed element. So iron's has 3 lines is the number 3. So iron is taking that +3 charge. It could take a +2, but in this instance, because of the Roman numerals with the 3 lines, I know that it's taking that +3 charge. All right, now it wants us to write the symbol for the second listed element. So far we're trying to write out iron 3 sulfide. And so far we have the iron with the +3 charge. And now it wants us to write out the second listed element, which is the sulfide. Sulfide is sulfur. Sulfur takes an S for the chemical symbol. Now it wants us to determine the charge for sulfur. Sulfur takes a Sulfur takes a -2 charge. And now we're going to crisscross the charges. All right, so we have Fe plus 3 and S minus 2. So that minus 2 comes down to the bottom of the Fe of the iron. And that plus 3 comes down to the bottom of the sulfur. Okay, great. Step 6 says to erase the plus and minus charge signs. So Fe has that minus 2. S after the crisscross gets the plus 3. Now we need to erase those charge signs. So this is going to become Fe 2 and S 3. And step 7 says to simplify the numbers to the lowest denominator, whole number. We're looking for a whole number. 2 divided by 3 equals 0.6, which is not a whole number. So we're going to leave the numbers as they are, and this chemical formula for iron 3 sulfide is Fe2 S3. Okay? That is the chemical formula or the compound for the name iron 3 sulfide. Okay? So we're going to practice with this one. Chromium is our transition metal. It is Cr, and because of that 2, it is taking the plus 2 sign. Fluoride is fluorine, which is our nonmetal, so it takes an F. And on the periodic table, it has the minus 1 sign. Now we crisscross. The minus 1 comes down to this chromium. The plus 2 crisscrosses down to the bottom of the fluorine. So fluorine is going to take that plus 2 charge. And now we are going to erase the signs. So it's going to become chromium 1, fluorine 2, okay? And 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5, which is not a whole number. So we're going to keep the signs as they are and keep the numbers as they are. So it's chromium 1, fluorine 2. That is the chemical formula for chromium 2 fluoride. I'd like you to go do the next two, and please have Miss D, me, check your answers. Okay, let's move on. We are now going to determine the compound or chemical formula for the name of a group 1 and 2 metal. So group 1 and 2 metals bonded to our polyatomic ions. So the group that falls in here. So we are going to turn the name into the chemical formula for group 1 and 2 metal bonded to a nonmetal, specifically a polyatomic nonmetal. So it asks, what's the chemical formula or compound for calcium phosphate? Calcium, again, is the group 1 and 2 metal. Phosphate is the polyatomic ion, known as the nonmetal. Step 1 says to write the chemical symbol for the first element listed. So calcium is Ca. Step 2 says determine the charge for the first element listed. Calcium is in group 2 of the periodic table. meaning it takes a +2 charge. Okay? So we have our calcium with our +2 charge. Step 3 says to write the chemical symbol for the polyatomic ion. So it's calcium phosphate. I'll write that up here again. So you want to look through the polyatomic ions and find phosphate. Phosphate is here. So the symbol is PO4 with a -3 charge. PO4, that -3 charge. All right, so far we have Ca +2 with our PO4 with the -3 charge. And that O we can write bigger because it's phosphorus bonded to 4 oxygens with a -3 charge. Step 4 says to determine the charge of the polyatomic ion. Well, I guess we did that in the last step just because it is in that chart with the symbol. So it takes a -3 charge. Cool. All right, let's move on. So we have so far written Ca2, PO4 -3. Step 5 says to crisscross the charges. So that 3 will come to the bottom of the Ca, the calcium. And that 2 is going to come to the bottom of the PO4. Now I think when you have polyatomic ions, I suggest that you put them in parentheses. Because when that 2 comes down to the bottom, it's coming to the outside of the PO4. So the +2 comes out to the outside of the PO4. So the parentheses help show that the 2 is on the outside of the 4, not included in, okay? Step 6 says to erase the plus and minus sign. So we have Ca3, PO4 with the 2. And then simplify the numbers to the lowest denominator. Well, 3 divided by 2, it's like 1.5. So that is not a whole number. Okay, so we're going to just keep them as they are. So the answer is Ca3, PO4 with the 2 sign. So it's Ca3, PO4, 2, and the small numbers do not cancel because they do not make a whole number. Okay, nice. Let's move on to the next. All right, let's try the first problem, then you're going to do the next 2 on your own. So calcium thiosulfate. So calcium is our group 1 and 2 metal. So it's Ca +2. Thiosulfate, to be honest, guys, without looking at the chart, and I don't have it in front of me. I am the worst. So I'll get you started. It's Ca +2. Now your job is to go find what thiosulfate is. Okay? Make sure that you have me check your answers. Okay. Let's move on. We are going to now determine the compound or the chemical formula for the name of a transition metal. Again, that are the metals that fall into this highlighted zone and this highlighted red zone. Okay, transition metals bonded to many nonmetals, polyatomic ions. So these guys. So we're going to have a name of a transition metal bonded to a polyatomic ion, and we're going to have to turn it into the chemical formula. Okay? So it asks, what is the chemical formula or compound for copper 2 phosphate? So copper is our transition metal. Phosphate is the polyatomic excuse me, it's a polyatomic ion. So the first thing it asks is for us to write the chemical symbol for the first element listed. Well, the first element listed is copper, and copper's chemical symbol is Cu. Nice and easy. So far we've determined Cu. The next step says to turn the Roman numeral into the charge for the first element listed. Well, back on that first page and above on your sheet, it was copper 2 phosphate. So that 2 here, we find it in our Roman numeral chart. We look over to the left and we see that it means that copper takes a +2 charge. All right, let's move on. So far we've come up with Cu with a +2 charge. The next thing it asks, step 3, is to write the chemical symbol for the polyatomic ion listed. The polyatomic ion listed was phosphate. So let's look. Phosphate is PO4. Okay. So far we have Cu +2 with a PO4. So we've determined Cu with a +2 charge and then a PO4. Step 4 says to determine the charge of the polyatomic ion. Well, phosphate here takes a -3 charge. Okay. So we have Cu with a +2 charge, PO4 with a -3 charge. And step 5 says to crisscross the charges. So the -3 comes down to the Cu. And our PO4, the +2 crisscrosses to the outside of the PO4. So we'll put the PO4 in parentheses and put the +2 on the outside. Awesome. Step 6 says to erase the signs, the plus and minus signs. So this becomes Cu3 PO4. Okay, and then simplify the numbers to the lowest denominator. Well, 3 divided by 2 equals 1.5, so that is not a whole number. So the subscripts, the numbers, the small subscript numbers, the small numbers are going to stay as they are. So officially, this is Cu3 PO4 2. So the chemical formula for copper 2 phosphate is Cu3 PO4 2. This is as hard as this ionic chemical formula determination is going to get. All right. I'd like you to try all 3 of these, and before you move on to your homework, please have me check. Okay. Nice job, guys. Our next video, next class, is going to dive into how to name covalent compounds. Today we did ionic, and the day before we did ionic. Next class we're going to do covalent, and then class after that we're going to learn how to name these things called acids, and then we'll just review, and then it's Christmas break. So guys, we're almost there. Hang in there, stay tough, go do your practice problems, raise your hand and call me over if you need help. I'm really proud of your hard work, so please keep it up. Thank you guys. Bye.